We'll do roll call votes since we have one person virtual. So we'll begin with Ms. Bjornstedt.
I am present.
Thank you. Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Ms. Tiff.
Here.
Ms. Rowe.
Here.
Ms. Schoenfelder.
Here.
Ms. Ossendorf. We expect her to come, but she's not here right this moment, and the chair is present also. We cannot change the agenda. We have 2 agenda items. Alternative learning programs and life skills ready process. We'll begin also with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ms. Rowe is going to read the mission statement.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students to realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. We'll give you a minute there, Ms. Ossendorf. You ready? Okay, welcome. Thank you. All right, we're going to begin with the, and we do a special meeting. We do not take public comment during special meetings. So our next public comment period will be at our May 1st meeting, which begins 6 o'clock or after. So with that, I'll turn it over to, oh, excuse me. Also present is Interim Superintendent Frank Norton. My apologies for not including that in roll call. And Ms. Dr. Martina Wagner is also here. So we'll take and turn it over those two to direct the discussion on alternative learning programs.
All right, I will pull Jackie up because she has some numbers.
Okay?
So a couple things in front of you. I did print out, and then for the public as well, there's some copies in the back, just the slide deck, because there are some numbers. If we're flipping back and forth, you have it right in front of you. You can kind of mark up your document. I don't think I have enough for everybody, but I can pass it around. So purpose of the special meeting today is to really just look at, do a deeper dive into our Alternative Learning Center and our work with GCED as an entity. So we are, there are member districts that work with GCED. We just happen to be one of the member districts. So we want to kind of break down what we know about ALC programming, and then just some opportunities for us to partner together about next steps with what we can do. So this is kind of a collaborative effort. Jackie has been able to pull some numbers together. Superintendent Norton and I and Jackie have sat together to kind of talk through potential proposals just to kind of get you up to speed. I created this visual because I will tell you, new to the district, just trying to understand how GCED functions and its impact to member districts is very important. So you guys can criticize the visual, but for me, it helped me understand exactly how the programs are working. So essentially, GCED, so Goodhue County Education District, is made up of member districts. We are one of them. The services that we are provided with some tuition reimbursement include our K-8 targeted services, which is extended day. So that could be our summer programming or outside of the school day work, or support services that we have for students that come into the district. On both sides of that, we also have our Pathways program. So at Twin Bluff Middle School, we do have a 6-7 Pathways program that works with students within the school building to support, and that could have Red Wing students there, but it could also have our member district students there as well, if they choose to send students there. And jump in if
You're doing fine.
articulate this inappropriately. Also at River Bluff, right across the parking lot there is the Pathways 812, which is run similar to an ALC program. And so there's some added supports for students that may go into that programming as well.
Can I stop there?
Yes.
It is an ALC program.
It is an ALC
And
program.
it's different than the Tower View program. The model of instruction is different, which is why they overlap grade levels.
Yeah. So for me, as I was breaking this down, if I'm being honest and transparent with all of you, I was trying to figure out, what does that Pathways 6-7 look like? What does the Pathways 812? I've been able to meet with the Tower View staff to talk through what does their alternative programming look like as well. So just this image alone just simply gives us a visual on the services that are provided to all member districts through GCED, which essentially acts as our fiscal host. Okay. Any questions on that? Perfect. So that's just a quick visual. 30,000-foot view, we are going to kind of hone in on the Tower View program, but we have some just comprehensive numbers for all programs that we run and what the costs are specifically for member districts as well as Red Wing. This visual, of course, goes counterintuitive of how we would like to read it. So I want you to read it from left and then circle back to the top. So essentially our alternative learning center is fiscally run essentially with tuition billing through GCED. What does GCED do for us? They do provide MARS reporting. So as we have students enter into our program, GCED is actually managing our MARS numbers and assuring that those students are actually fed back into our district. So thinking about revenue from Red Wing students only are coming back into our district. Beyond that, the last two I'm gonna have Jackie talk through because then it will lead into the counter proposal that we're gonna be talking about today that was given to us at our superintendent's meeting.
Right. So GCED does all the MARS reporting for all of the alternative learning centers in the county. And in the eyes of MDE, they are GCED programs. So if there's something, they need to do something with the program, GCED is the one MDE is gonna come to first. So all of the revenue then, because as a cooperative entity, GCED can't receive general education aid, they don't receive referendum aid. It all goes to the student's district of residence as reported in MARS. Then to get the revenue and the expenses in the same entity, GCED is gonna bill the revenue by ADM to each member. Prior to fiscal year 22, so fiscal year 22 and prior, after that, the superintendents and the GCED board had agreed that any profit or loss for that program then would go back to the resident district. So the districts would share in the profit and the loss of any programs that were running under the ALC models based on a per ADM served in the program. So each of the 3-day programs, which is what we're going to talk about in a couple slides here, was run separately. So they each had their separate tuition rate and they each had their own profit and loss.
That's all mine.
Okay, it's on yours. Okay. What the GCED Superintendent's Council talked about on Wednesday was to stop dividing the profit and loss by the members. And that GCED, that entity, would need to figure out how to cover the profit and loss, or to cover any loss of the program, and then bring it back to the Superintendent's Council and then their board as to how they were going to cover it, whether it's by raising additional revenue or by making budget reductions. That would stay there, and every district would only flow to GCED the revenue per student. So this is a look at what would have been paid under the old model, in which each rate was developed by dividing the expenses of the program by the number of students served. You can see what the rates for those 3 programs would have been and what the total cost to Red Wing would have been under the old model and what it will be under the new model, where Red Wing's per pupil revenue is $10,096.03 per pupil unit. There is about a $15,000 to $18,000 savings that will be realized in doing that. What brought this to the forefront was for fiscal 22, the per pupil unit for Pathways 812 was $22,000. So this was brought to a superintendent's council there last fall, and it has been a discussion ever since on how do we rectify this.
Any questions about this? And then we'll look at.
Just kind of mirror the ADM then, that we've been closely hit.
Yes, for in the new model, it is exactly what you get for ADM, taken from
Do you have
NDE.
any questions on this at all? Yes.
Can you, for reference, can you just tell me what is the per pupil unit for someone who's enrolled in the high school, just in a general education?
That's the number.
The 10,000. Oh, so this is not, okay.
Yep. That is what we would receive for them in total off the MDE general education revenue report.
And that's what we're receiving for a student who's not at Tower View or not enrolled?
Correct.
Got it.
Any student within our system,
Kindergartners too?
kindergartners too. Right.
Good, okay.
Next, we wanted to take a look at what would the estimated cost be to operate this as an ALP. So you can see the FTE we have there. We think this is a very conservative model. This would be the same FTE that is currently there, and adding back in the secretarial position that is currently vacant. So it'd be $669,724. Any questions?
So the request from the board was to come with some recommendations. So I was able to work with Jackie and Superintendent Norton over the last few days, and some of the Tower View staff, and met with Sherry as well, chatted quickly this morning. So a couple options that we do have is that we accept the proposal that's come forward. So really the original ask from the superintendents was to make more cost-effective SAP programming, so state-approved alternative programming models. So the difference actually with the cost is roughly 8,000, not
Okay.
the 10 to 18,000, but
Okay,
the difference
I was doing
in,
math fast.
that's okay,
Yeah.
that's okay, 8,201. So that's the overall cost savings for the proposal. So that could be one of the options that we move forward with. The second option is that we continue with the new costed model with the savings of roughly 8,200 with a contingency plan that our school district, Red Wing specifically, looks at the ALC programming over the course of the next academic year, to look at the return on our investment, the programming, the supports that teachers and support staff will need over there, with the possibility that we could assume the ALP in the 24-25 or assume an entire ALC. So there's two different options that the state would have available for us. So we would take some time to just look at the overall cost savings and then the program, and just be a little bit more intimately involved with Tower View staff with the support. So the latter is to consider submitting an ALP, so alternative learning program application, to the state for approval. The turnaround time is relatively quick. We have a deadline of the sooner the better is what I was told. May 15th would be an absolute deadline that we would have to meet, with the understanding that there's some iterations that as they review our application, that we would work closely with the state to know that we would have everything in place to be successful for the 23-24 school year. A couple of things to remember. Surrounding or member districts can actually have their students open enroll, which we would assume their ADM, so the 10,000, what is it, 10,096 for that student. It is a little more cost effective for them as well, roughly. With the
About
new
the same
proposal,
cost.
it's about the same. So it would really be dependent on what maybe that family, that student needs would be. The other thing to consider is we would also have an additional, depending on the number of students that we have with that per pupil unit, plus the compensatory funds that they generate would all come back into Red Wing. Across the board, I mean, the savings are very, very close. The conservative model is being super conservative. It may be that we could even actually kind of even it out. With the conservative model, I think the difference is about 24,000 of additional costs that Red Wing would have to incur as a cost. So everything is really close. A couple of things that I kind of sat on this weekend as I was thinking is points to consider as we move forward with the recommendation is where's the return on our investment? You know, what's the quality of the programming, the supports, the collaboration, the increase in student achievement? Is it fitting the needs that students have as they go out to Tower View, which I have no doubt that they do with the current staff and the infrastructure. It's just a matter of do we want to assume that in Red Wing and kind of look at developing an alignment to our own vision and mission. So I sat in a space too to really think through what have community requests been. At this point, regardless of the proposal or the option that we pick, it is still staying intact so that we are being responsive to the community and the students who have spoken out and the organizations that support us. And so those are just some points to consider. Like as we kind of met, we just noted that the proposal from GCD was fair. It is cost effective, but again, we also are looking at our enrollments and different programming options for our students. So
Questions? Anybody? Yes.
Just to clarify, this $669,724 is not an additional cost above what we are paying right now. You said it was around 24,000?
So the difference from us taking the ALP to the 657 for the new model would be the difference there, is what we would have to incur as cost. Now, again, it's a conservative model, so we may not spend that much. And I don't know, Jackie, you can talk to whether or not the compensatory dollars are,
The compensatory dollars would probably cover it. It would be very close, but it would depend on the year and the mix of students you have in there. Because compensatory revenue can go up and down, depending on your free and reduced students that are in there. So the cost that's presented there is not new cost. You are just currently sharing it among all of the members of GCED.
So did you just answer that? What is that 24,000? What is that discrepancy coming from? What are those costs that are covered?
They're being covered by other members of GCED right now with the students they are sending there.
Like you said, that could be made up.
It could be made up by compensatory revenue, so there's compensatory revenue that is allocated to Tower View as a site. I don't know what that is for next year off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up, but that it is a possibility that there could be some.
If we open enroll kids, are we responsible for their transportation too?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I mean, we don't provide
Well,
transportation
in open
for-
enrollment in general, we're only responsible from the border.
Right.
So they would have to either drive their student all the way to Tower View or drive them to the nearest stop at the district border to get on.
Because GCED probably provides that right now, right, for other students? or-
Each member provides their own.
the other difference too is we have roughly, what did we have, 51?
50, yeah, about just shy of 52 ADM currently
And
in Red Wing residents.
And in the event we would have more need for the programming, not necessarily trying to recruit to go to the Tower View, but, each of those students brings funding as well, so that could narrow the gap.
And would Red Wing students have priority?
Yes, it would be an ALP program for Red Wing, but we would offer open enrollment, which I think was a misconception when we first started talking about this, that you couldn't open enroll, but you can in fact open enroll, but then they become Red Wing students at that time. So we would assume they're ADM.
Well, I want to thank Mr. Norton and Dr. Wagner for their work on this. I know it started before Dr. Wagner got involved, but I appreciate the presentation and the work that the Superintendent's Council and our representatives worked on this. What's your recommendation?
In my belief system, I would like to see the ALP in Red Wing. But I do think that GCED did give us a counter proposal that seemed reasonable, but if I leaned into anything, I would really want to do a deep dive in the infrastructure and make sure that we have more of a presence out at Tower View, that the teachers that are doing a remarkable job, the support staff there are supported with everything that they need, which means, as Red Wing contracts, they're receiving Red Wing PD and Red Wing support. But again, I kind of sit between the two because of the cost is, relatively even, so.
Well, I'll just say if somebody else has anything, yeah, go ahead.
Is there a difference in staffing? That's one thing we talked about before, is what's happening with staff currently under GCED. Has that been discussed at all? And what would that look like in this coming year if we decided to wait a year?
Staffing has been discussed with them. I can't speak to specific staff members, but I can tell you that in our conversations with GCED, that making it basically whole again is the plan. But I can't talk about individual members.
In either option 2 or 3, that is the case, so.
They talked about,
Or all.
because of those situations and the need to do this in such a timely fashion, that number 2, basically, because we're going to assume that is the direction that if we recommended that was the direction, and one of the things that I've been talking about, for my portion of it, was that, given that time period in number 2 up there of the timeline, there's a new cabinet coming on, there's gonna be a new director of teaching and learning who's going to have to develop the curriculum out there if we're gonna be doing that, if we're gonna be moving in this particular direction. It's gonna be a principal at the high school who may have to allow some of his staffing to be able to be out at that particular building. Dr. Wagner's been on, and in her particular position now for 9 months, basically, to be able to deep dive, as she calls it, into that programming and take a look at that. My recommendation was to slow the process down, to allow it to function as it has been, and then we assume that as we learn what it is that we need to do, rather than just saying, let's go. So, I'm with Dr. Wagner, we talked about this, it's just a matter of timing and process, and in my belief, it is something that we can accomplish over a period of time.
And that's what I was gonna say, exactly that. I don't want to be brushed on something. I believe in the program. I want it to stay in Tower View. You've heard me loud and clear on that. And I think because of such that the academic year is coming to a close, it would be beneficial, based on your recommendation, which we certainly welcome, because that's your role, to make a recommendation, is for us to study it for the rest of this year, to see how we want to go forward with staying the course or taking it over. So with that, I will go to Ms. Bjornstead in this role. And who else do we have here?
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Bjornstead? are you
Yep,
there?
sorry, technical difficulties for grandma over here. So what I'm hearing, am I hearing that as a group, we are leaning towards option 2? That we do want to work towards taking Tower View back into Red Wing, but we want the time to do it.
Yes. Okay. Then I have Ms. Rowe. And who else raised their hand?
Anna.
Anna, yeah, Anna, but I thought I had another name here too, somebody else. Go ahead, Ms. Rowe.
I would agree that option 3, to try and get something in sooner rather than later, and by May 15th is way too soon. So I don't think that's a responsible option. My concern, and I'm curious to know what the consequences are for GCED if we were to do our own programming. Because certainly we've had a long-standing connection and relationship and working partnership together. And I certainly don't want to not be thoughtful in making decisions that obviously are going to affect GCED. And I certainly want to help plan so that we don't put them in financial peril or do anything of harm to our great partners. So can anybody speak to it? Are there any negative consequences for GCED in doing this?
Well, we have talked to them about that, and I think that's the part of that process. I think that's the part of that year-long process. There still would, for the most part, be a collaboration happening. We'd still be buying services from them.
For sure.
It's really just flipping a couple of those roles inside there as to, who's going to manage that, who will be the staff be under. They'll be under Red Wing as opposed to GCED. But a number of these support services or special education services that are out there, perhaps social worker, those are the logistical things we would need to be able to work out. Right now, the services are split between 6 that are cooperative districts. It would just be down a little bit if we, not even a little bit, I guess it wouldn't even be down because we'd still be buying those services. So we have communicated with GCED, the directorship there, as to that point.
So it's not unlike any support services that they provide in this building as well. It's just it's another building, it's another program where they support under we already have our contracts out there and we're paying for the building.
Yes,
So So really, we're not harming them by making this decision.
There may be some underlying things that we're not aware of now, that's why the study would come forward. but-
Wonderful, thank you.
Ms. Ostendorf.
All right. What percentage of students at Tower View are Red Wing residents, do you know? And then versus like River Bluff?
Tower View right now is like 90 to 95% Red Wing. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 kids out there that are not.
Okay.
The
Pathways.
other way around for Pathways, Red Wing makes up maybe closer to 30 to 50% in the 8-12 program. And most years, we are almost entirely the 6-7 program,
Oh, okay.
Which is a much smaller program.
which is it's like a one teacher to 12 students-ish.
Because looking at that difference with, or, you know, the total revenue or expense, I guess, relate into that new model is combining Pathways and Tower View, right? So would the assumption be that we would encourage Red Wing students to go to Tower View versus Pathways so that
Under which model?
if we went to an ALP and we're looking at, you know, these
Yep.
numbers, so we're trying to get to that, you know, trying to get as close to that,
Mhm.
you know, covering all of our costs, would that be the way we would try to push that, is for students to go to Tower View instead of River Bluff or anything like that, just so that we're getting,
I can't speak to how we would direct students, but I can say that the Pathways 8-12 program covers grade levels Tower View does not. So Tower View doesn't start till grade 10. So you'd have to go through 8, 9, and maybe
Mhm.
part of 10 before you could get into Tower View.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do we have any information about like the difference in success rates? And I understand, you know, with any alternative learning, so much of it is individualized, and so it's comparing apples and oranges, but just in general, like, is there?
Between the two programs?
Yeah.
We wouldn't have anything like that.
Not sure,
No.
but we could find it.
Graduation rate you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or are you talking program, because sometimes they'll go in as a 7th grader or an 8th grader, and then they're out, they graduate out. They've met the needs within that program, it allows them. So it wouldn't necessarily be graduation we'd be able to look at,
Yeah.
which is more so what you're getting when you're at Tower View, is that you're finishing your academic career there.
Finish
That
towards
program is going
graduation.
to, yes. That's gonna be a very difficult comparison.
And then with our costs, like the lease is not on there because we're paying that either way, correct?
Till 2028, yes.
Right. And so in the current model with GCED running Tower View, we don't get any reimbursement for any portion of that lease, right? Like we just pay that.
Correct.
And it runs through our lease levy system, so we get tax dollars back.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I think it would make a lot of sense for it to be under Red Wing. I mean, I agree that having it together by May 15th sounds like a lot of logistical nightmares for everybody involved. But I think especially since the staff there are predominantly under Red Wing contracts, like it seems kind of convoluted to have our staff, you know, there's just so much that's going back and forth that to me, it seems simpler and cleaner to have our staff be our staff. And to know that, you know, everything is working the way that we want it to work. Not that any other way would be wrong, but that, you know, if they're our staff, they should be our staff. And it seems cleaner as far as like who reports to who and how all of that stuff kind of works. So I think if we had more lead time, I would be more in favor of like option 3, but I think 2 seems pretty reasonable. At this point.
Good, thank you. Anybody else have anything? So your recommendation is stay the course and explore for the next year?
I am in favor of that. Just to put into the space, the application is not that cumbersome. It is very easy to turn around, just to put it in the space. And I know that investigating, going deeper, I absolutely 110 support too, but I just don't want that to be like a catching point that we couldn't turn around an application. I'm just putting everything in the space so you know that it would it's very feasible to have that completed even before May 15th. So, go ahead.
So, Go ahead, Mr.
Do you feel that we have enough information right now moving forward to go with option 3? If there is time to do the application, do we have all the information we need?
We have everything that we need for the application.
But beyond that.
But beyond that, I do, like I said, I sit between the two for many different reasons. So I appreciate the feedback from the board. A deeper dive and figuring out that infrastructure and how we can support as Red Wing. And, looking at, we could also at the end of this year, figure out that it is working for us, right? So we could continue the course. So I do support number 2. But I didn't want you to think we couldn't turn an application around because we can. So I just wanted you to know that. So.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion that anybody wishes to make. So, because this was kind of brought upon the GCE board meets on Thursday, the 27th, and I think they're only fair for them to know what we're thinking as a school.
I would make the motion to accept option number 2, to accept the proposal from GCED with overall cost savings of $8,201.21 with a contingency plan of reviewing the program structure with possibility to assume oversight of our own ALP or ALC in Red Wing for the 24-25 school year.
Motion by Ms. Rhodes, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Tiff. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Oh, Ms. Bjornstead, go ahead.
I just want to know, when this is all done, what do I specifically need to say? Do I say this is what we have decided? And, spit back option 2?
You, go ahead, Mr. Norton.
Director Martina, Dr. Wagner and I will meet with you prior to that, so we'll contact you and we'll bring you in, so that it's clear.
Okay,
Okay.
just so you know, I'm going to be rolling into town. Maybe I have to be there at 6:30 to sign papers, but I might not get back till 6. So, okay, yes, a phone call, or we could do a Google Meet
Yeah.
and I'll jump on up here.
This is the 27th, we've got a little bit of time.
Couple days yet.
Okay.
Yes, all right, thanks.
We'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Any other questions? With that, I'll start with Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Ms. Tiff.
Aye.
Ms. Bjornstead.
Aye.
Ms. Schoenfelder.
Aye.
Ms. Ossendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. For now, that's the direction we're gonna go. We're gonna stay at Tower View, and we're gonna build in the program and look at it to see if it's something down the road we want to explore. And we'll be in contact probably with Tower View down the road because they need some information as building and going cost forward, and there's some security questions out there yet and different things, but we'll let whoever wants, what's that?
We'll meet on the 28th.
Other meeting on the 28th, so I'm getting ahead of myself here, so, great. So, we'll hear more about that, so. Anything else from Dr. Wagner, Ms. Paradis, or Mr. Norton on this issue?
We're good, thank you.
All right, we'll take about a 5-minute recess, and then we're gonna talk about life skills ready process, and you're all welcome to stay.
Yes.
See how many take half on.
Lisa?
what you love to do with me. I get to go back to my element of teaching. So part of our inflection process is actually through the Life Skills Ready process. The feedback that we get today through this initial process will actually be put into the work that Inflection is doing to create our maxim, to make a recommendation for our maxim. So what we're doing is we're doing listening sessions in the community coming up May 2nd, and I think we'll have one the following week. We are trying to get out to Prairie Island and get feedback from our Prairie Island Indian community members as well. We're doing student listening sessions, and all of our building leaders are going through the same process with their staff. This week, we are also visiting Twin Bluff and working with students to get their feedback as well. So essentially, we're trying to get as many stakeholders to give input on our new maxim, which is essentially, the easiest way for me to describe it is kind of like our mantra and creating our new identity, which includes who we are right now as Red Wing, but then really leveling up who we want to become. So the language that you are sharing with me today will actually contribute to the work that Inflection is doing behind the scenes with me to develop the new maxim. So this is more of a retreat-based activity, but essentially what our staff and leadership has gone through. So it does require some interaction. So it's two-way here. We don't have to do any motions. It's just about sharing out your thoughts and ideas for the inflection process. So this picture right here, I don't know if any of you know which school it was pulled from of students.
Burnside,
I would say Sunnyside.
Okay,
Sunnyside?
That's my guess.
That's my kid.
so which school is it?
Sunnyside.
All right,
I just noticed that.
10 points, Rachel, for staying on task. So what you'll notice is that these students are in 2060, will be in their midlife and mid-career, which makes you really think about where we will all be in 2060. But essentially, we are educating the next generation of very wonderful, powerful, courageous human beings. So just to kind of wanted to put that in the space for all of you, that the work that we are doing to repurpose our identity is really for the students that we see here. And now I just want to kind of talk through a little bit of what Inflection has put us through. So Inflection is not the great and powerful Oz behind a curtain. Rather, they're kind of walking alongside Mr. Norton and I to kind of guide us through processes in the district to just reimagine, like I said, who we are. But based on this picture, this is from 1920 versus 2020. I want you to kind of shout out, what do you notice as differences, similarities, or what are you noticing in the picture?
I am not in this one.
Okay. And this one is it
1920s one?
Yeah. Technology.
technology has changed? What else do you notice?
Black and white versus color.
Very similar with kids sitting in desks
Mhm.
in rows.
We've certainly come a long way if you think about how we harvested the land versus what we have now in supports too. So Matt from Inflection talked a lot about how the equipment we are able to use now has surround sound, climate control, Bose music. It's very and likely that you can harvest in a much faster way than we did years ago. So the times are changing, right? It's time to rethink and rebuild. And then for purposes of the two images of the school, we aren't really that different, right? So we're still in rows. Maybe we have little snippets or ideas of progressive thinking within our schools, but we're still pretty much traditional in our service delivery model, hence the work that we want to be doing to ensure that our students are life skill ready. And what does that look like and feel like really depends on what our own lived experiences are, positive or good, and also thinking about those that maybe were not so helpful as well. But as we move forward, we want to make sure that we elevate those attributes that were certainly ones that helped you become lifelong learners or college and career, or just skills to be ready in life. Currently, the vision is here. We recite this. I believe we recite this at every board meeting. So we know that we strive to have an innovative and meaningful educational experience. Again, we want to foster curiosity, pursue and apply best practices, embrace diversity by respectfully engaging students, families, and staff, and then connecting and partnering with our community. And then our mission is that Red Wing Public School is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, productive citizens. Now, if I were to stop you in the hallway or stop you on the street, would you be able to recite that? Would you know exactly what our vision and mission is?
Mission, yes.
Mission, okay. Because you recite it all the time at the board meeting? Okay, but is it instilled in everything? I try to lean into it when I'm thinking about our belief system, but there is a little bit easier way to kind of bring this together. So the inflection work, again, is for us to create these maxims. So this is a quick visual. I don't know if it's popping up, doesn't pop up on there for a while, but the idea that we want to be able to launch in August is with something quick and concise that we can roll off of our tongues, and so that we can lean into our decision-making, which will give us our identity, and then essentially define and lead our purpose within Red Wing as well. So this is just an example of one school district, but the contributions and the ideas that you share today, and our community members, our students, our staff are sharing, will go into the maxim that will be proposed through Inflection. I also want to make sure you know that Inflection just isn't a maxim creator. At the end, I'll tell you how this will all come together for our new 5-year plan as well, so you can see all the component pieces coming in. All right, now, does anybody know what school these students are from?
High school.
Okay, so this was our homecoming court. Getting ready to graduate this year, so we're super proud of these humans. But I want you to take a quick minute. This is where you have to do some reflection of yourself and just reflection of next generation of graduates in Red Wing. So that is why you have the pen and the Post-it note right in front of you. I want you to think of, I'm going to say 4 to 7. You might not get 7. Write these down on your Post-it. If you need to lean into a partner, that's fine if you need some help. But for the first 4, try to think of your own. But identify 7 attributes of a high school graduate who is ready to step into their future. So what are those attributes that you think would make a student life, skills, career, post-secondary, whatever it might be going into the future? What attributes should they have? You can do it too, Mr. Owen, if you want. Yeah, you have your all 7?
What's
Yeah.
that? Need a pen?
No, I have a pen. I said, I've written these down. And
Yep, he probably has them memorized.
Want some more pad?
you just keep writing.
I feel like I should walk around and see how everybody's doing.
I could do that.
Okay, it's co-teaching. All right, does everybody have at least 4? All right, so I'm gonna let you guys go around and share out the key attributes you think our high school graduates should have as they step into their future. So we can kind of popcorn around, we don't have to go in order. So anybody willing to list out their attributes? Go ahead.
All right, I put sets goals, is motivated, is respectful, is proud of their pathway thus far regardless of where that was, works well with others or see others as an asset.
Awesome.
Curiosity, imagination, grit/determination, empathy, courage, resourcefulness, and growth-minded.
I have a kid graduating. So I said I would like for her to have confidence. I was thinking of her. Be good at problem solving, resourceful, and knowing key life skills like how to do laundry and balancing checkbooks and cooking and just kind of managing daily life.
Sure. How to do laundry, that's a good one. Maybe that'll make the maxim.
They had all mine,
They had all yours?
all mine.
You can repeat it.
Okay. I put education, family values, a good public school experience, interested in a certain degree, college, or interested in a certain trade.
Curious, confident, a problem solver, thoughtful, empathetic, and self-aware.
I did not follow the assignment.
That's, you know what?
This is actually slightly triggering for me.
Sure, tell me more.
I am all those things.
Yeah.
That wasn't gonna save me on the outside. Whew, I wrote self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
Financially, like savvy to know, it don't matter, you can be the most financially responsible person, but what's gonna happen to you if you get a buttload of money? Like being able to flip brains in that sense.
Sure.
If you're not good at finances, or if you're good, you still need to practice being good, because no matter what happens in life, circumstances seem to drive financial things sometimes, most of the time. Be able to negotiate for yourself on the outside, provide food for yourself. That's all I got, but mainly being self-sufficient. And for that I was orphaned as a child by one of my parents. So since 14, I thought about the things that I would do differently for my kids to ensure their safety beyond physical things. To make sure that they're gonna survive without me, because it was iffy that I was gonna make it without one of my parents. So that's the triggering part for me, because I am all those things, but those didn't help me on the outside.
Okay, we're gonna work, Nikki, on this. So the next part, because you were able to kind of share exactly what you needed to be like so ready, right? So what are your top two? So on your list of the two or of the seven, and you can tell me all of them.
Self-sufficiency.
Okay. So the life skill ready process really thinks about 4 quadrants of who we are. So the thinking, the knowing, the acting, and going. So self-sufficiency is really about being able to be self-sufficient, right? So that would be in the knowing. Maybe another one.
Just being able to financially balance.
Okay. So that would probably fall in the knowledge. Do I know how to apply money skills, right? Or would you?
That would be a no and an act. I believe it's a bit different. Well, it's different if you're a YOLO, where it's hard to try and save, because if you're not good at it, how are you gonna do something that you don't know until you put it into practice? Then you create, once you actually do it, then you create something that works for you.
So I'm gonna just try to go here, because you actually pointed out a key part of what we need. So for those, like the two that you feel like helped you be successful in life, that you either self-taught or you learned somehow.
I was navigating through that government system, which
To like.
I feel students are not.
Ready for.
Oh, yeah. I've had people, well, in a sovereign nation, I've had someone walk with me. And even in the education system, I had somebody a friend of mine that's ADD and has been diagnosed. What's the difference? I was provided the liaisons to walk with me. She was never provided that. So I was given things differently than everybody else. But still, I still had a very hard time navigating in that government world, even given the help that I have. So I needed to acquire bigger and better skills.
Yes, and that's where we're going with this. So you're capturing that. So even though you think that you didn't understand the assignment, you understand this.
Just backwards.
Okay, backwards.
No, it's forwards, actually. Or that world's backwards is what, as an adult, I've recognized, but as a kid, they tell me that I'm backwards because I'm not the same as everybody else.
So this process is really gonna get us to think through what are those elements that we spend all of our time in education, which is also very important, but other things that we can also be elevating to the top as we're working with our next generation of adults, really. So life skills, career, post-secondary, could be military, whatever that student's pathway is really thinking about this. So Nikki, you get the luxury of picking one of your other board mates. Actually, they're like stressed out. I'm gonna go to the next slide so you know what I'm actually asking you. So of your attributes, I'm gonna actually have you list out two, but you're gonna have, guide me in placing what that attribute was. So what is that 1 to 2 attributes, let's do 2, that were successful for you? So Nikki was kind of model that for us. She talked about her financial understanding, her self-sufficiency. Do you have somebody else you want?
Curiosity.
Okay, where do you think that is?
I don't know. I think maybe in act, I mean, between think and act, I guess, of like, just always looking for more information, looking for, yeah, experiences and.
Mostly curiosity stands in the thinking, but depending on how you apply it, it can, so we'll
Yeah, to ask questions.
ask questions, is the other one?
Well, I mean, I think that's part of curiosity. If you're curious, you ask questions and,
You're inquisitive.
yeah.
Is there another attribute?
I think, probably determination.
Where would you place that one?
Act, I think.
It could actually be split.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. What's the difference?
And then I'm gonna show you in just a second. They're gonna map it, and then I'll show you. Kind of backwards design. So kind of moving into the process. Right now, you get to pick your next.
All right, Pam.
Talk to you.
All right, I will say confidence. I would put that under think, but it could be under act too. Sometimes no as well. And problem solving. It's kind of under act as well.
Pick your next.
All right, I'm gonna go.
And I do think we have Teresa online too, so don't forget.
Oh yeah, Therese, we're not forgetting about you, you're next. Unmute though.
Now next. So I think that my thinking would be that I'm a lifelong learner. And I'm going to give you an acting that is not on my list, but the thing I think that has been the key to my success has been my ability to connect with people. Lots of different kinds of people.
What was your first one? Lifelong learning?
Yeah, being a lifelong learner.
All right, Teresa, you get to pick either, who hasn't gone yet? Mr. Bryant, Jennifer, and Rachel. I'm just trying to like. So you get to pick next, Teresa, whoever you like.
Oh, okay. Well, how about Jim?
Okay, Mr.
I
Bryant.
can hear you. I didn't write this one down, but it came to me afterwards.
Okay.
I like to talk, so communication.
Okay. You hear it?
I like to talk to people. I mean, I have no problem carrying a conversation with people. My wife and kids tell me that.
Okay.
Another attribute to my success, I was not that great a high school student. I mean, I made the honor roll, but once I went to a technical college, it was called then, to something I liked, I excelled. So interest in a trade. So however that fits. Interest in future. So that's where I thrived.
Like
Thrived.
high interest?
Well, I'm looking at Jennifer, so we might as well take Jennifer.
So I think self-awareness, but to go along with that, self-advocacy. And then perseverance.
All right, and last but not least.
I would probably say motivated.
That's a good one.
Motivation?
And probably the same empathy and then act, do I think?
Every-
Yeah, you could go. All right, so what do you notice about how we chart it? So on the bottom,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of the act, and these are kind of overlapping. That's me thinking, where did we not put a lot in? No. And what do we tend to spend a lot of our education on? No. Right? That does not mean that that's not important. We do have to focus on our academics. The bigger skill to that is, how do you know when to apply this? So the whole idea with Inflection is when we look at Life Skills Ready and we're creating our new 5-year plan, as we're creating our maxim, is that we are instilling the skills that we have found to work for ourselves, or that we hope will work for others as we move forward to make decisions, as we're looking at our policies, as we're looking at our curriculum, as we're working with our next generation of teachers. Because I'm willing to bet all of you could probably name a teacher who did something, or a person who did something to support these. I did this at the Rotary. I don't know if you know, there's one gentleman there, he's an attorney in town, Chuck. He drilled me, and this is gonna go online. He said, I absolutely don't believe you. I had an English teacher that was everything. That English teacher taught me how to read and write, and I could speak to, and he taught me how to develop and plan and investigate, and I started writing plan, investigate, develop, and I said, so that teacher instilled in me core content, which we need to do, but also the other essential skills for lifelong processing. Whatever that might be to develop you as a whole child. We don't spend a lot of time on this in education. So I just wanted us to kind of go through this life skills process. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how this will actually inform our maxim. And for those of you in the audience who are in district advisory committee, Jennifer, we might do this again tomorrow. But we're getting, what's really interesting is all of you went somewhere that was very vulnerable for you, but you probably didn't recognize it. And that there was somebody along the way that helped support or coach you in the educational world. So just to kind of make sense of this, I keep looking over there, but it's not changing. The Think, Know, Act to Go was actually research-based. Originally, it was actually designed for college and career readiness, the essential skills to get into college. And what Inflection has done is really dug deeper about, what are the life skills that our students also need to be successful, to be able to, like Nikki said, take the understanding of what she learned to apply it to real life. And one of the examples that Inflection shared with us as they were training us on this protocol is oftentimes we have a lot of students who exit high school who are high academics. They're academic all-stars. And then we send them off into the college world. And now they are actually charged with having to be a self-advocate, right? And some excel. Some, like my daughter, who I hope never watches this board meeting, sorry folks that I give her as an example, needs to be cultivated. Mom can't call your advisor all the time. You need to be able to set an appointment. This is what you can do. And I can be a guide on the side, but essentially we also need to equip our students to be life ready. So that's what we need to be doing in Red Wing. So we go through this process just because there are all of these elements that we need to be thinking about. And while our vision and mission is key, as we get more stakeholder input and we start to see themes coming out, we're essentially going to develop that maxim related to this. So we are going to be doing the Life Skill Ready process, again, like I said, with community. The District Advisory Committee will go through it really briefly tomorrow. Our students are going to be sharing, as Twin Bluff 7th graders or 8th graders, this is what I think it needs to be, I need to have to be life skill ready. So they don't even have to even be adults yet, but they can be contributing to our maxim as well. Ultimately, our plan is to have something very visual and robust that we're anchoring in to ensure that all the voices are heard in our next generation of our vision and identity in Red Wing. So I'm super excited about this, but this is not where our work ends. So it's really nice to have a pretty image that we plaster all over our new website and shirts and lanyards and things like that. But we are actually going from what is our district currently like in a kind of a me mentality to more of a we collaborative, opening up the lines of communication with our community, with our stakeholder groups, our organizations that are partnering with us, our Prairie Island Indian community, our Black Student Union and families, just really thinking through who are our community constituents and how are we going to actually include them with everything that we move forward. With that said, we also don't want to be kind of randomly going all over the place with who we are as the next generation of Red Wing. So what Inflection will do for us is help us take our vision and our mission, help us to create that identity and really start working on our 5-year plan. This is where all of you are super excited about getting into like start and end times and building configurations. All of those elements will actually fall into this, but we can't do that until we know who we are and what is our identity. And so as we start creating these maxims, I'm going to actually compile all of these. I'll probably grab your Post-it notes too, because you had a lot of good ideas. They will be submitted to Inflection among our many other submissions from our other stakeholder groups, and they will create an image for us that we will give input on. It will go through many iterations, knowing that we're not just one and done because they've created something. I also want to be very cognizant that our maxim is inclusive of all. That we are aware of the land that we are on, the people that we serve, the many types of people and community members that make up Red Wing. And so they're very aware of the vision that will come out of our maxim of work. So what I took you through was essentially what our community groups will go through, and you may have to go through it 100,000 times. You might be in a community group, so I would encourage you to kind of map it all out again. I'd also encourage you to be stewards of this work, so encouraging people to come to our different community sessions or talking to your own children that are in the school and asking them to really just give some really good feedback so that as we create our next maxim or our next identity for Red Wing, that it's really responsive to what you think are essential skills. It doesn't mean we're going to stop teaching the 3 R's, reading, writing, or arithmetic. We're still charged with teaching all of the core content, but within that, we can instill some other life skills that are essential. So that's all for me, but I want to get some feedback.
Just for myself, I would stick empathy in the no.
Mhm. Yep.
Because empathy is a feeling, and I definitely know the feeling
Sure.
versus like someone trying to tell me something different.
Okay.
So for me, empathy would be in the no. I know I'm having a hard time disconnecting from people, all of the things in the land currently because of the sinking and flooding issues we have on Prairie Island. That is very difficult for me because I don't know how to do that.
Sure.
But I'm learning through action and how to disconnect from the land currently.
Yeah.
So I stop feeling it. But if again, it circles back, how do you know if you're not gifted in that?
Sure.
So my sisters, they're not empathetic. They're like, why can't you just stop? Well, this is why. I don't know how to. It's
Sure.
in me. So that's where I would just disagree that the empathy is a no for me versus an action or go.
But I think to that point, you understand.
I understand, but back in high school, I didn't
Right.
understand at all what was happening to me. Actually, I was
Mhm.
being called a freak. I felt like a freak.
Yep.
And so, but now as an adult, I definitely know everything I was feeling in these walls was real, and it wasn't just me, and I wasn't a freak. And so.
Right. And so as Red Wing Public Schools, we need to ensure that feeling is diminished and that we're embedding it throughout all that we do, the whole child essentially. So, but this just kind of distills out what were the things that helped you to be successful. Your application of it is even deeper synthesis of that. So own that part of it. Yeah, so
Thank you.
I think that's.
I took a lot of work,
Yeah, it did. So you have to embrace that.
25 years after graduating, could have been.
Any other questions about this? I'm actually going to email all of you out just a little bit of literature. If you want to actually know more about kind of the background and how it was developed and how Inflection is using it with us. This is very, robust in how they design this, but I think it's critical. And what's really interesting is I've actually worked with other organizations that have worked on 5-year plans, and this is the first organization that really, backs up and helps us understand, what are all of the skills our students need. I'm super excited about the next generation of Red Wing. So this, besides ALCs and ALPs that I dream about, I also dream about the maxims and just getting all the community input for that as well. So, but I needed to take you through the process, so all of you had an opportunity to just say we went through the process. It's very important. We've had our fingerprint on this.
How are you determining which students are involved in doing this?
So we are opening up to any students that want to come to the student listening sessions after school. At Twin Bluff specifically, we are going into the art classroom, only because we can get them to kind of write out and draw out the different words as well if they want to. So that will be this Thursday. So we're trying to get representative groups of students as well. So it's not just isolated to one certain group, but every student is able to come. We have Ann Robertson setting up sessions at the different schools. We are charging our principals with doing this with their staff, which most of them have done. So we're just really excited. We want to be able to submit everybody's ideas to Inflection by the second week in May. So we have somewhat of a maxim design before the end of the school year, so everybody has input. So there won't be voting of a maxim. It'll be, here are some designs, give some input. What kind of changes would you like to see? Maybe it's a different term or a different word, as you can see here. Every district's just a little bit different, but we want to make sure that through the whole process we're very transparent as we develop this. So.
Did you say after school is when?
Before school lets out. Oh, the after school sessions are, after school.
High school?
Mm-hmm. Some advisory classes are doing it as well. So there's some teachers that have been doing it. And so they essentially are filling out a Google form for us. So we're not going to collect all the Post-it notes. For you, I can take yours and submit them for you. Tomorrow, the District Advisory Council will go through it really quickly. So we're just trying to get as many voices as possible.
Say that
I'm just gonna share,
Yeah.
confidence,
Mm-hmm.
is a thing.
Yeah.
But some people think they're confident, or
Yeah.
know they're confident,
I know I'm confident.
and some people act confident.
Yes.
So some have, there's some things that they lack, but I think confidence to me would fall under 3 of those. 4.
Sure. Yeah. But just what's super interesting as I've been doing this, and this is, I'm actually stealing somebody else's idea. We were train the trainer. Almost every time we do it, very rarely do we get much in the know. When I ask specifically, what attribute do you believe of your 7 helped you to be who you are? And very rarely did it say, I knew all of my math skills. That's important. I'm not minimizing that, but knowing how to apply the content knowledge, having the skills to kind of finesse it in the real world is much more important. So we have a lot of work to do to be able to get there.
I think knowing where to go to find the resources, like lots of things about, what's the future of technology going to be?
Mhm.
Like, there, you have no idea,
Right.
right? But that you need to prepare people to know where to go for information, how to think critically about it, and
Yeah.
those types of
Or
things.
how to
versus,
stay
like,
curious, how to be a
Yeah.
lifelong learner.
That's more important than like, here's how you use this word processing program, because that may be completely irrelevant by the time you actually.
Right, and there are jobs in the world that haven't even been thought of yet, that our generation, if we go back to, let's go back to this first slide. This generation of students will be part of in their midlife and mid-career. So what kind of skills can we do simultaneous to the knowledge that we're doing in a school district that will yield results over and over again for many decades to come? So be excited. We can do this. Super excited about this work that we have and that all the voices are here to give us input in this next generation. So that's all I needed from you. I have all of your feedback. I don't know if you gavel us out after
Well,
this.
we got a couple more things.
Okay.
Just on here.
So I'm gonna stop sharing here, but thank you so much for going through the activity.
All right, we have upcoming meetings and future topics. We all know what those are. And our next meeting is set for May 1st, 5 o'clock workshop 6 o'clock board meeting or sometime thereafter, depending on how long we have like the workshop. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Schoenfelder, second by Ms. Rowe. We'll start a roll call vote with Ms. Bjornstead.
Yes. Aye.
Ms. Schoenfelder,
Aye.
Ms. Ossendorf,
Aye.
Ms. Rowe,
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Yes, I.
Ms. Stipp.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.
All right, I need all your Post-its, because I need to put them up here,
Oh,
so if you wrote any
I wrote.
notes or pictures of me with Devil horns.
I was never part of the spelling bee.